Santa Clara as the 49ers training camp gets started, adjacent at Levi Stadium. And with us right now, I got to tell you, this
our guy.
It didn't disappoint me, but it just made me realize how limited I am. Joining us right now is Mike Yam. I knew he was an NFL Network anchor, SiriusXM host. I know he's big in the business, but what I didn't know is he's the author of a children's book, Fried Rice and Marinara. It's on Vooks.
Wow.
Just another guy
Author.
That's more expansive than you and me, Guru.
Yes, sir.
What's up, Mike? How are you, buddy?
First of all, I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate you mentioning what really is a huge passion project for me with the children's book, Fried Rice and Marinara. But you guys are not limited. You know, Matt, you've probably forgotten more basketball than I'll ever know. So let's level set across the board here. But I appreciate it, guys. And this is like the best time of the year too, just because
it's fun.
You know, I feel like you go through the dog days of summer, and we're like here. Like teams are back. We got preseason around the corner, and then in a blink of an eye, we're going to be in week 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Mike Yam, NFL Network anchor, joining us. Let me ask you this. From the outside, Kyle Shanahan spoke to the media yesterday, and he said Brock Purdy's our number 1 quarterback. He's going to be taking all the first-team reps when he practices, which is 2 out of 3 times. He's not going to throw 3. From the outside, what did you take away from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch yesterday?
So there's a lot to unpack. You know, we talked about it yesterday on Total Access, and we're going to be talking about it again today on the show. I think there's a lot of different ways to look at this. And different phases. You got the phase where Brock goes down and there's real concern on what's going to happen at the start of the season. And we're having real conversations about, hey, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold. I mean, hell, I got David Carr on set with me a few months ago saying, hey, don't be surprised if Sam Darnold is out there in week 1 if Brock can't give it a go. And then there's this narrative that it doesn't matter who the quarterback is for Kyle Shanahan. And I think to a point, we ran a graphic, and it was sort of eye-opening to me since they got to a Super Bowl a couple years ago with Jimmy G. You know, since then, it's a little bit of a revolving door, really because of health around the quarterback situation. And for as much as I want to give the hat tip, and Kyle Shanahan certainly deserves that because they still figure out ways to get it done, I'd rather know who my guy is. I think what's fascinating here is Brock Purdy's coming off of an elbow injury, and I know he's on a pitch count, and I get that he's a proven, known commodity that won last year, and that's great. Can I ask you guys, who, in a vacuum, Kyle Shanahan's offense, wouldn't you want to see? Wouldn't you feel like there's maybe potentially even more upside in what Trey Lance can do? And yet that's not the direction that it looks like it's going. And I understand why that's the case. This roster is ready to win right now. Assuming Nick Bosa's out on the football field. We are talking about one of the best defenses in the NFL. And whoever this quarterback is, has got playmakers all over the football field. I'm still excited, though, on the unknown of Trey Lance. And maybe I'm in the minority on that one. But this would have been a great time to see what Trey was going to do, and I don't think that's going to happen in week 1.
Yeah, I think what we've come to realize, at least I have, is that the 49ers drafted a project at quarterback, and not dissimilar from the Golden State Warriors, who felt they were in a championship window and drafted James Wiseman and found out he was a little too young. I think they're kind of figuring out the same thing with Trey Lance, but I don't think they're ready to. I don't think they're ready to call it a day with him, though, but I do think they think Purdy is definitely better at this stage.
So, you know, at the end of last season, and I don't know if you guys felt this way, for all the talk and the buzz about Trey and him not being out there, you know, if I would have said to you, hey, you go and you draft 2 quarterbacks, and granted, it looks a certain way because you gave up some capital and you took Trey Lance 3rd overall, and, you know, we know the Mr. Irrelevant situation, and it doesn't necessarily play out this way. But if you net out and say, hey, we got our guy, it's not the worst thing in the world either. And because I think there's some teams in the NFL right now going, who is our guy? And at least the Niners feel like if Brock is out there and he's healthy, we're going to be in good shape. And if there's any team in the NFL that understands the importance of depth in that quarterback room, it's probably the San Francisco 49ers. So I think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan sit there and go, look, as much as there's some drama and some narratives, and I don't even think it's a lot of drama. I think people saw what Brock did and say, hey, if he's healthy, he's QB1. Okay, like that's not a spicy take. But if we sit here and say, hey, if Brock goes down, like we got Trey and maybe that competitive spirit and Sam Darnold, who he can bring what he can bring to the table, like this might be a pretty good situation for all three of these guys.
Mike, on behalf of Steiny, I'm going to thank you for listening to our show every day, man, because it sounds like you've been listening because everything you're saying, we've been throwing out. And I need your help with Kyle Shanahan. I've called him an offensive genius, his play design, play calling. And I've also, Mike, said, you know what, in that 19 Super Bowl, there was some questionable offensive play calling, but I do understand his genius. I'm telling my partner, I look at Philly, I look at the Cowboys, and I look at the Niners like any one of those three teams could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. With that said, if there's another season, let's just say the Niners and Kyle don't win the Super Bowl, tomorrow's not promised. Mike, how do you look at sports? Would you look at it like not a failure, but when is Kyle going to hoist that Lombardi? Because on a good day, he's badass.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, how many times you guys are fortunate enough to get a front row seat? I'm at home watching a ton of games, but my God, every time I look up at the screen and it's the Niners, there's something cool. There's something different, something that I haven't seen on an offense. And that's a lot of that genius that you're talking about with Shanahan. I think we all been watching sports for a really long period of time. You can be super talented. You might have the best team in a respective sport. But if it's an individual sport, you might be the best guy. It doesn't guarantee success. And it's really hard to win. There's so many things that have to fall into place. And you know what? Last year could have been the Niners' year. What would have happened if they were healthy against the Eagles and they had a quarterback? Like we might be having a very different conversation. There were all those years, and maybe I'm dating myself a little bit. Phil Mickelson, it's like, hey, when's he going to win a major? I mean, we were having those types of conversations. I don't look at Charles Barkley, for example, or Patrick Ewing. I'm a Knicks fan. I grew up in the Northeast. But, like, I don't look at these guys who don't have rings and say, hey, not talented, don't deserve their flowers. I sit there and say, hey, like, it's really difficult. When there's a guy named Jordan on the other side, it's not always easy to win. If it's a team, it's not easy to win. And I think in the NFL, your ability to consistently execute week in and week out when your body's on the line, I don't think it's a Shanahan thing. I think he puts his guys in successful spots. But sometimes, look, a guy goes down and he gets banged up and he's not healthy, or you lose on any given Sunday and it sucks. But what's better out there than Shanahan? Like, I think he's on that short list of guys that you want on your side.
Mike Yam joining us. He's NFL Network anchor, SiriusXM host, and also author of the children's book Fried Rice and Marinara, which is on Vooks.
Wow.
Let me ask you this. It feels like conventional wisdom is, the NFC. The NFC's a little down, but the best teams are Philly, San Francisco, and Dallas. If you subscribe to that, give me one team other than those three that could emerge. And if you don't subscribe to those three being the best, or at least conventional wisdom, what am I missing?
No, I think those are the three best teams. The problem is the NFC is just down when you compare it to the AFC, because we could go, 4, 5, 6 teams deep and go, hey, if they represent, and maybe not 6, and representing, that conference in the Super Bowl. But the reality is, like, it's deeper, and there's no question. I think there's a couple things that you could point to. Those are the 3 premier teams. I do think I'm curious to see what the Giants are capable of doing in year 2 under Brian Daboll, and the fact that they have some explosive playmakers, which is something that they really lacked a season ago. I think Seattle's got an opportunity to potentially make some noise. That front office has done. John Schneider's done an amazing job drafting the last couple of years. So I feel good from a Seattle perspective, potentially making some noise. And, as far as content, am I curious about Minnesota? Yeah. Would I put them in that class? No. I think Chicago potentially can make, a little bit of a jump as well, but not to the top. Like, I'm not saying that. I think those are just intriguing teams to me. I think the only other teams that I would add would be Seattle and New York.
Mike, yeah, I see you on TV, man. So I hear your commentary, and I feel like I know you, and this is going to be a curveball. Last Friday, my partner and I had a passionate debate. I'm a 70s baby about the running back position. And I know Saquon Barkley got an extra $1 million, but back in the 80s and 90s, the Marcus Allens, the O.J. Simpsons, the Roger Craigs, it was prestigious. There should be no position on the football field that is going through what the running back position is. I understand life's not fair. Can you share with us your thoughts on what's going on? Because I don't like it.
It's criminal what's happening to these guys. Like, if I am a parent or a coach or, just involved in a kid's life and he's like, hey, I want to be a professional football player. Guess what? Go play wide receiver. Go play quarterback. Like, what are we doing here? I think there's, like, if I said to you, hey, Christian McCaffrey's average per year salary, if I'm not mistaken, guys, and maybe the numbers have changed a little bit, I think he's outside the top 100 in average salary per season. Like, that is wild to me. If I said to you, are you drafting Christian McCaffrey, as a first, first, second, or third running back off the board, if you were a team, like, I just, the impact that these guys have on the football field. Austin Eckler had 107 receptions last season. That was almost more than double. And I get it. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were banged up, but it's still almost double what those guys did combined. I think he had more catches than CeeDee Lamb. Like, I think you need to look at these guys as productive players on the field that are difference makers. Maybe we have a different conversation about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if they're able to run the football. I'm with you guys. You're right. Life's not fair, but this is it. It really doesn't feel right. I don't even think it's a question of fairness. I just don't think it's right what's happening to these types of players at that position, expected to take the amount of abuse that they take on the football field.
Mike Yam joining us on 95.7 The Game. He works for, God, I don't have my notes up. I know he's a children's author, NFL Network anchor and a SiriusXM host. Used to work with him in the Bay Area. Great guy. Mike, thank you so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate it, and good luck with the children's book.
I appreciate it, guys. Enjoy the next couple of weeks before we get to week number 1 here.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you, Mike. Take care, buddy. That's Mike Yam, NFL Network anchor and author, children's book author.